Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Spiritual Businesswoman podcast. I'm your host, Sky Kristen, and I'm so excited but also grateful to be a vessel and share everything that is trying to come through today. The teachings and wisdom and lessons that are trying to come through in this podcast are so potent, and I just know are going to offer so much value. And so I'm not only excited but just really grateful to be able to show up today and help people hear this message. So today's podcast is going to be all about confidence, radiating confidence, embodying confidence, unshakable confidence. And whether you're someone who has zero confidence or find yourself to be a pretty confident person, honestly, there is something for you in this podcast. I know without a doubt. And before we get into it, that is another thing that I want to talk about is it is so hard for me to name podcast titles. Like even this one, for example, I still right now don't even know what I'm going to name it. But specifically just with this podcast, with my podcast, the flow of it, yes, there's structure. Yes, I come and I sit down and I have a mission. I know what we're talking about. I know what the vibes are. I have my notes, but so much of what comes through is channeled, is me in a very flow state. And I feel like sometimes I'll go off on a tangent or I just feel what needs to be said in the moment and I say it, whether it fully has to do with, the title. So once I'm done recording, it's always so hard trying to pick a title. So with all that being said, I just want to say, regardless of what the title of these podcasts are, there is something for you in every single episode. I know it without a doubt. And I know that sounds like I'm trying to tell you to listen to every single episode. I promise you, it's just genuinely how I feel. I know there's so much value that comes through, and I also know how I act as a consumer. I very much look at the title of an episode, and so many times, because I follow a lot of similar podcasts to this one, I'll click a title that I'm not really pulled by, right? It's just someone that I trust, and so I click on it even though I feel like by reading the title it's not going to be for me. And there's always something for me every single time. So I'm sure I'm not the only person with a podcast that feels this way, especially with the things that I specifically talk about and, growth and evolution as a human being. So much of what I talk about, I'll just get such an inkling to go on a certain tangent that I know is so important to say. I just wanted to say that. It's literally the hardest part. So today's episode is all about confidence and how you're really going to be able to step into this authentic, genuine confidence that will genuinely change how you show up in your life and in this world. So let's get into it. If you lack confidence, it's pretty simple. You are not on your own team. And I know the feeling of not being on your own team. Because the thing is, you clearly believe that people can do great things. You know that anything is possible. You've seen examples time and time over. You believe that people are able to do and be great. But you can't do it. You just simply aren't on your own team. You're too focused on others. You're viewing yourself as separate than others. You're in a lack mentality. And this is also not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you if you lack confidence. Lacking confidence in a lot of ways is a survival mechanism. So I want to get into that quickly before we move on to actual tips and tricks and what you are going to do to show up as this confident person who literally radiates confidence. So lacking confidence usually stems from childhood, because someone who is confident and real confidence, I'm never talking about arrogant asshole confidence, and we'll get into that later, but someone with real genuine confidence, they have a strong sense of self. They know their value. They feel safe in being who they are. They just genuinely feel safe and worthy to take up space. So now imagine And you might not have to imagine. This might be your reality. But imagine a child who did not grow up with these teachings. A child who grew up with emotionally immature parents, who never felt safe enough to take up space, and who maybe even picked up the belief that taking up space makes you arrogant, who maybe picked up on their parents' or caregivers' beliefs, or had jealous friends who told them it wasn't okay to be who they are, that, they should stay small, that their opinions don't matter. That child is going to grow up with no confidence in order to stay safe, stay small, put themselves last, be accepted, be liked by society. If you relate to this, if this was you or is you, you're not weaker or less than. Like, this is a very human thing for you to do. At the end of the day, we are just highly advanced animals. We want to stay safe. We want to stay alive. So we are going to pick up and learn these things from our environment. Like, how can we stay safe and alive? So the biggest thing, if you picked this up from childhood, you need to let go of this belief that this is who you are, right? You are just a person with no confidence. You just lack confidence. It's who you are. When it's actually who you had to be to survive. You are not incapable of being and truly embodying confidence. You were just never given the proper tools, so you picked up the tools that you could find along the way. Never ever blame yourself for who you were or what you did when you were in survival mode. And on the flip side of that, maybe you relate more with this statement, which makes more sense for me, that, it's also possible that you grew up in a healthy environment with healthy, supportive parents, and you were actually a very confident child, but you lost this over time. Maybe you were in a toxic relationship, friendship, and this person or these people were emotionally abusive and got in your head, allowed you to believe what they wanted you to believe, to have a certain amount of control over you. Or maybe you started a business and failed or gotten a bunch of debt. These things can allow you to step into a victim mentality without even realizing it, because the thing about this life, okay, and how it's so easy to fall victim to this life, and I've been there, life is hard. Like, bad things, really, really bad things happen to people who don't deserve them. You never deserved what happened to you. You did, however, deserve the lesson that you learned from this, or that you're going to learn from this. You deserve the ability to relate with and help others who have been through similar situations. You deserve to become the version of you that made it out to the other side. Like, this is definitely a practice. I'm not saying that this is easy. I fall victim to this life so many times over, and I constantly have to bring myself back to myself, get back on my own team, step out of the illusion, realize what all of this is all about. Like, anything that happens to me is happening for the evolution of my soul. And look at it this way. I always think of this example, and I use this example sometimes with people, is let's say you were looking for a therapist to start working with. Would you want a therapist who has not really been through much in their life, has had a pretty decent, easy life, has always been confident from the beginning and holds that confidence now? Or would you rather work with a therapist who embodies and radiates this confidence because of what they've been through? And I don't know about you, but obviously I would choose the second one. This person is going to be able to relate with me on such a deeper level. This person has been through pain and made it out the other side and is who they are because of what happened for them. This person has the ability to go deeper. This person has deep strength. This person knows how to come back to themselves. Or let's say you're trying to find a mentor to help you in business. Would you want the mentor who had everything given to them, maybe started a business off their parents' money and skyrocketed from there? Or would you want business advice from the person who started from nothing, or the person who had 3 or 4 failed businesses before having their 5th business blow up? When you remember that you came here to learn, that's literally the whole purpose of being on this planet, you realize the more you learn, the more you have to offer. And so many of us, all of us, we're all learning things. We're all going through things. You really are never going to be able to allow yourself the lesson learned if you stay victim to what has happened for you. So whether you've never been given the proper tools to step into this confidence, or you were and you lost them along the way, it is so important to view this as a blessing, because it is. You know, when you get to step out of this victim mentality, you're able to realize how much of a gift it is to be able to get back onto your own team, to be able to come back to yourself. You know, coming back to yourself after losing yourself, you are guaranteed one thing, and that is that you are going to come back stronger. That is just how it works. So I feel like it's just so important to understand this, important to understand how capable you are, understanding that whether you've never been confident and you were never given the tools to learn how to be confident, or you were and you lost them along the way, you know, getting into toxic relationships, whatever. A lot of this is not because you are this way and like you can't change. It was literally things you picked up along the way. Like, I always come back to this. We're still just machines. We are just advanced animals. Like, we still at the end of the day want to stay safe and alive, and we pick up on bad habits or negative beliefs or whatever it is to stay safe. If staying small and not being confident and constantly be told that you're wrong and don't do this or whatever, or things fail, you know, whenever you put yourself out there, you fail in some way. At the end of the day, there could be a very big part of you that believes staying small and not being confident is going to keep you safe and alive, and the opposite is so scary and you can't be that way, and it's just not true. Stepping into your confidence, radiating confidence, is safe. It's a safe space to do so, but you need the tools, right? You can't just hear that. You need to know what steps to take to reprogram this. So we're going to get into it, but first let's get into what confidence is. Okay, so confidence at the end of the day, to its core, is just an energy. It is a frequency. You know, if you've ever met someone who is confident, you can feel this. And the same goes for someone who lacks confidence. You can feel this. At the end of the day, it has nothing to do with what they look like or what they say. It's how they present themselves, how they enter a room, how they speak. It's literally just their energy. And I think truly stepping into your confidence is so important. So deeply important for so many reasons. There is honestly a deep danger that isn't talked about enough, especially to young women. And this is something that I'm excited to talk about today. This is something that I'm going to teach my daughters if I ever have daughters. Like, radiating confidence, being on that frequency, is going to keep you safe in so many ways. And to clarify, I'm not saying bad things don't happen to confident people, but to know that other people can sense and feel your energy the same way you can feel and sense if someone is confident or if they aren't confident. A manipulator, a sociopath, someone whose intention is to take advantage of you, these kind of people can only take advantage and manipulate the vulnerable. How do they know who's the most vulnerable person in the room? They can feel it. Back when I deeply lacked confidence, like not a drop of confidence, I would always get fucked with by men and women, and I always wondered why. I was unaware of the energy that I was in the frequency that I was, putting out there. I didn't realize how much my lack of confidence was showing, and again, there's such a danger to it, because who did I attract into my life time and time and time and time again? People who knew that they could take advantage of me. People who could literally feel how vulnerable and insecure I was and took advantage of that. Male and female, partners and friendships. And it's so funny because now that I'm in a place where I embody my confidence, these people have disappeared. And not just the people of my past, like these kinds of people, these kinds of manipulators, these kinds of partners and friendships that I would attract into my life, they vanished out of my life. I do not meet these people ever. I do not come across these people. These types of people don't exist in my reality anymore. When before it was all that existed. I would turn my head and just, without even trying, end up in a toxic relationship or toxic situationship or, gain a toxic friend who was low-key jealous of me and wanted to make me feel like shit, wanted me to feel low about myself. I didn't even have to try. It was just all around me. I was radiating this energy, this frequency, and it was coming back to me. And now that I have just transformed my energy and just who I am as a human being and the deep confidence that I have, that is mirrored in my reality. Those are the type of people that I meet. Boys that would hit on me and degrade me in the past, like, I would step on them now. And they know that, and that's why they vanished. They know they cannot access me anymore. And by the way, I'm not talking about sweet guys with zero agenda who, like, called me pretty, okay? I'm talking about, like, disgusting, manipulative people who have tried to take advantage of a younger, more vulnerable me. Just to clarify that in case that sounded a little aggressive. But again, people can sense this energy. They can feel it, and so can you. And one thing I want you to try to do, or even think about right now, is how you feel when you sense this. When you sense a confident person in the room, how do you feel? How does that make you feel? Does it make you feel inferior? Or when you sense, people who lack confidence in the room, how do you feel around those people? Do you feel safe around those people? If being around confidence, if being around that energy makes you feel inferior, and if being around the lack of confidence energy makes you feel accepted or safe, there's your answer right there. Everyone is a mirror, and so people are going to mirror to you what you lack within yourself, but also they can mirror to you what is possible for you. And this reminds me of a story. So one time I was at a friend's show in LA, and my boyfriend was talking to a group of people, and then me and my friend came up and met up, and we were all just talking. And there's this one guy, and I remember specifically he was in a red suit. I don't know if it was a suit, but he was just wearing all red. He was tall, he was loud, he I feel radiated confidence. I feel was a confident person. And he started asking me questions. It was all good and positive, but he was definitely grilling me, asking me questions, whatever. I'm answering his questions, and we're getting pretty deep. We're having a pretty deep talk. We're talking about feminine and masculine energies, and it was right up my alley. Loved this conversation, right? And so once, I guess he felt a little more comfortable around me, he came up to me after and he was like, I wanted to talk to you, but you just seem like you have your shit together and you are so confident that it actually scared me and pushed me away, and, I felt inferior and I didn't want to come up and talk to you. And for me, it was pretty interesting to hear this because of how I viewed him, right? I saw this person as someone who seems very sure in themselves, very confident in themselves. And it's not to say he wasn't, but in that moment when he told me that, I was able to quickly flip the script and just remind him. That's a thing. We forget sometimes. I forget sometimes. But I reminded him in that moment, all I'm doing is being a mirror for you. All I'm doing is mirroring back to you what is possible for you. If you feel inferior by my confidence, if me being me embodying my confidence and radiating confidence makes you feel inferior, it's only because you don't think that you can do the same, but that's not true. It's easy to fall victim to that mindset though, so all it took was me reminding him, I am just mirroring what is possible for you. If you look at my confidence and you think damn, I would love to be that way, you can be. I am showing you right now what is possible for you. And he was so grateful for this. Just this entire experience was so good. I could feel how grateful he was. I'm pretty sure we hugged, and he had a mirror tattoo, and he showed me his mirror tattoo, and there were so many coincidences, and it was, obviously a conversation that was written in the stars and that I'm so grateful for. But it's good to remember that everything and everyone is a mirror. People do not have to dim their light or be small to make you feel comfortable. If someone makes you feel uncomfortable because of how confident they are or how they present themselves, you feel inferior because of this, that is a you problem, and you need to work on this. All you need to do is change your mindset. They are honestly showing you what is possible. Allow being around confident energy to inspire you, because this is how you're going to grow into it. If you feel safe and comfortable and good with people who lack confidence, who are insecure, who are vulnerable, that is a problem. You do not want to feel safe in that space because, again, that is not a safe space to be in. That is not a safe energy to move from. That is a very dangerous energy to move from. You are putting yourself like literally in danger's way. You were like the little clueless gazelle with the lion or tiger like watching you from the bushes. That's truly what it is. They can sense that you are vulnerable, that you are insecure, and there's people who are going to take advantage of that. Okay, so now let's step into the recipe for unshakable confidence. Now, this is my opinion, right? I didn't invent confidence. I didn't invent this recipe, but this truly to me is how you are going to work through your shit and actually embody and sustain confidence, right? Not just have like a little glow up and a little, week where you feel good and then you're back into your old ways. There are some deep truths, there are some lessons, some work to do, so let's get into it. The recipe to unshakable confidence is love, trust, and respect. If you want to step towards achieving this energy, being able to radiate this energy, be on the frequency of confidence, you need to start implementing practices that are going to allow you to love yourself, trust yourself, and respect yourself. When I think back to when I was not confident at all, I did not love myself. I did not trust myself, and I did not respect myself. I was simply not on my own team at all. And this recipe also, I feel like this is the difference between real confidence and arrogant asshole confidence. The arrogant asshole doesn't embody these traits, right? When you think of this person, or at least when I imagine people who just radiate this fake sense of confidence, this egotistic confidence, these people usually hate themselves. They're not in a place of loving themselves and trusting themselves and respecting themselves. Let's be fucking real, these people do not like themselves. A true confident person looks at themselves as like their most prized possession. They have a deep sense of worthiness. They know that just because they are alive, they deserve love. Just because they are alive, they deserve to live a good life. Just because they are alive, they deserve happiness. They don't put this pressure on themselves to perform. They don't attach their worthiness to their levels of productivity, their output, right? They know they are worthy just because they are. So let's get into it. How do we learn to truly love, trust, and respect ourselves? Let's start with love. Self-love is a ongoing practice. It is something that you are going to need to come back to over and over and over again, or at least I have to. If you're watching on YouTube, you know the drill. We're about halfway through and my camera overheated, so if the angle is slightly different, I'm sorry. So personally, when I feel like I go through times where I'm not on my own team, these are also times where I have fallen off my self-care routines, my self-love practice. I'm way too distracted by others. I start to compare myself. I start to question myself. I start to let in too much outside noise, right? I start to feel less than. My confidence is just shot. And so what I do in these moments, and this is hard, like it's not easy to realize you're going into this downward spiral, but some of you may know this, maybe you don't, maybe you're learning this. Being in the frequency of confidence, of self-love, self-trust, self-respect, it is such a grounding, good feeling. And I don't like to use the word addicting, but it is an addicting feeling. It is a feeling that you want to sustain. You want to stay here. You want to be here. You want to move from here. Life is better in this frequency, in this energy. And so when you're not in that energy, which we ebb and flow, we need this. You need to go through hard times, to question yourself, to question reality, to have these doubts and limiting beliefs. Like these things, if they exist within you, which they definitely exist within me, these things need to come up. You need to feel these things. You need to go through low times, right? Every time I go through a low time, I come out of it so much stronger, but it takes work. And, I believe everything is happening in divine timing. I don't put, this pressure or like deep feelings of disappointment on myself. But there's definitely been times where when I finally decide to pull myself out of this downward spiral and to come back to my truth, I realize I let myself get a little too comfortable in the negative feelings and spiral that I was going into. And I recognize that a lot of it is a choice. So, for example, what I do in these moments that I'm saying, is so hard is I get off socials. I get back to my hobbies. And if you're thinking, I don't have hobbies, yes, you do. If you genuinely can't think of your hobbies, then you have forgotten about them for way too long. And again, I've been there. But awareness is the first step, right? And what I'm saying is sometimes I become aware that I'm in this negative downward spiral and I'm not showing up for myself. And I could have pulled myself out of it sooner. But again, there's still parts of me, and again, I'm not going to get deep into it, but there's like biologically, we can get addicted to certain chemicals that get released in our body. We can literally get addicted to feelings of lack, feelings of hate, feelings of unworthiness. Like there's parts of us that when we let ourselves get back into these old negative feelings, though it doesn't feel good to be there, right? It doesn't feel good to move from that energy. I notice there's times where I stay there a lot longer than, I maybe should have. I became aware that I was there and didn't do anything of it. I know that I should put my phone down and not doom scroll, but I don't, right? It's like you're aware that you're in this space and you're just kind of sitting in it. So again, I don't allow myself to feel disappointed in these moments, but you gotta come back to yourself. Like I said, get off socials. I'll put even time limits. I'll literally delete it from my home screen. You don't have to delete the app in general, right? You don't have to delete Instagram, delete TikTok. You can delete it from your homepage so you don't see it. Honestly, out of sight, out of mind. It's so helpful to do this for even just like a week. I just forgot about the things that make me feel like me, that make me happy, that make me feel loved. I get back to reading, I get back to meditating, getting back to my body, stretching, doing yoga, journaling, talking to myself, literally talking to myself in my head or out loud, just talking to myself, getting back in my own energy, like feeling my own energy. Being so focused on others or just being like chronically online, you forget. You forget that you're you. You forget that you are truly experiencing this life as you, with you. Like, get back to yourself. You're here with you till the end. I'll also do a affirmation and meditation practice, which I'll basically say an affirmation relating to self-love, to loving myself in some way. And I'll sit in meditation with my eyes closed. I set up the vibe. And I'll say this affirmation as I breathe in. And as I sigh out, it's like a sigh out of confirmation. Like that is your truth, whatever you just told yourself. And I'll do this over and over again. And as you repeat this, you will elevate your vibration. It will literally force you back to yourself. There's been times where I'm doom scrolling and I will literally fucking toss my phone and I'm like, I'm so done with this. I feel like shit. And I will just get into meditation and I will do this. It's such a easy way to force yourself back to yourself, back into your own energy. And every time I do it, every time I'm back in my own energy, I could feel myself again. I'm so, connected to my body. It's an emotional experience. And again, we can't, or I don't want to say can't, I'm still learning as I go, but it's hard to always move from this, right? It's hard to always be in this space and we fall off of it, but practicing self-love, honoring yourself, honoring your body, coming back to yourself, spending time with yourself, getting used to your energy. This also is going to help you realize when outside influences are influencing you. I know my energy so well. And this is the thing, a lot of people, you might not even know what it's like to fully be in your energy. You could be so deeply influenced by people around you and people online that this is not a natural state for you to be in. And again, I'm saying that because been there. But when you acknowledge and get used to your own energy, it is so easy to realize when you are not in that space anymore and when you need to take some time to come back to it. Another one, you want to develop a self-care routine. Whether you have one daily, weekly, monthly, multiple. I have like my weekly self-care routine that I go through, but even on the daily, like doing my skincare, and if you know me personally, you fucking know how real this is. Doing my skincare is a religious experience. I mean, there's nothing like it. Just washing my face, putting on my little like headband and little like wristband that like collects the water, washing my face, putting on my serums, using my rollers, my gua sha, like doing all of this is literally like the highlight of my day. Sometimes doing my skincare is all I need to come back to me, to realize, you know, this is my life and I really love myself. I'll have like revelations as I'm doing my skincare, okay? But on top of this, even just making myself a little tea, like be intentional in the little ways that you take care of yourself. And again, develop a routine, develop a ritual. Sometimes you're not going to be able to do it. That's fine. Don't make yourself feel shitty about that. But you're never going to find the time. You don't find the time. You create the time. Create the time. Take the time out of your schedule to develop a self-care routine. Take care of yourself. Take care of this body. Like again, washing my face, flossing, brushing my teeth, it feels like I'm taking care of someone that I love. And honestly, a lack of self-love just feels like an abandonment of self. You've just abandoned yourself. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not in your own energy. You're too focused on other people. You're comparing yourself. You're entering a lack mindset. Like you've completely abandoned yourself. And so you just need to come back to yourself. Get back on your own team. Get off socials. Get back to your hobbies. Get back to the things that feel good. Again, stretching. Stretching is such a thing that I try to do daily. Sometimes I don't get around to it, but every time I get around to stretching, and it's nothing serious, like I'll sometimes do a yoga flow, but sometimes I just stretch, especially in the hips. Again, I don't want to get into it, but we hold a lot of bullshit in our hips, a lot of stress, a lot of trauma, and I'll just do like a bunch of hip stretches. And just doing that, I feel myself coming back to myself. I feel the feeling of showing up for myself, taking care of myself, loving myself. Okay. Moving on to trust, I believe, personally, and maybe you relate to this, there is no bigger confidence hit than not trusting yourself in this life. And here's the thing, if you relate with that, is I don't know who taught you to be that way, you know, why you're that way, why you feel like you can't trust yourself. You know, maybe you just always relied on others. Maybe you had overbearing parents who made you feel incompetent, or just like, you know, the type that are like, oh, let me do it. Like, I'm going to do it better than you. You don't know what you're doing. You know, maybe you grew up in that energy. And so it just caused you to not trust yourself, you know, to believe what everyone around you is saying. Again, a survival mechanism. And just cause you to rely on others and not rely on yourself, not trust yourself. Or maybe you started a business and it failed. Maybe you made the mistake. You made a wrong decision that caused it to fail. And so because of these quote unquote wrong decisions that you made, you don't trust yourself anymore. Here's the thing. If you feel like you can't fully trust yourself in this life, whoever taught you that or whatever happened that, you know, caused you to pick up this belief, if you sit down and did some shadow work about this, which I think you should, if you sat down and wrote, why don't I trust myself? In what areas of my life do I not trust myself? You know, prompts like this. If you write these things out and you really sit with it, you'll be able to realize that the reason you don't trust yourself right now and therefore aren't trusting yourself to make decisions for the future is solely based on the past. You are looking at the past, learning from the past, and allowing that to dictate how you show up today and how you show up tomorrow. And this is the thing. This is falling victim to the lesson. So those things that happened, again, everything is happening for you. Everything is teaching you something. But unfortunately, if you relate with this, you are falling victim to the lesson. But this is the thing. That's usually how it works. We usually fall victim to the lesson before we can actually learn from the lesson. There's nothing wrong with you. That's a very human thing to do. It's very human to have things repeatedly happen to you and, you know, grasp this certain belief from it and bring that with you and see that as the truth of reality. Again, just fully fall victim to the lesson. That's a very human thing to do. But you're not just human. You are a evolving soul. And what a soul who came here to learn will eventually come back to over and over again, which you can do and you will do, is eventually learn from that lesson. Let's say you failed, I don't know, you failed in some way. Something has felt like a failure to you in your life, and this is why you don't trust yourself. The truth is, you now have more information because of that thing, because of what happened. Failure is such an important part to learning and growing. You would not, really think about it. So many of us are afraid of failure, but you shouldn't be. And also failure is just part of it. So good luck being afraid. It's like being afraid of death, It's like that can just consume you your entire life, but that is just what happens. We are born and we die. Failure is literally just something that happens. We came here to learn. You're going to fail. That's what happens. People fail and then they use that as an excuse to never try again. They use that as an excuse to not trust themselves. That failure just taught you so much if you let it. There is a version of you who was in that relationship or had that business or had that job, whatever, literally any scenario, and you failed. You made a mistake. You made the wrong decision. If you let yourself learn from that failure, which, surprise, that's what you're supposed to do. If you let yourself learn from it, you are then, a version of you who has more information. You have more information at hand to now go and make better decisions in whatever it is you're doing. Be a better partner. Run a stronger, more stable business. Not make the same business mistake. Okay, so how are we going to start building this trust within ourselves? You need to do what you say you're going to do. And if you can't, then say less, honestly. Start small, but you do need to retrain your brain that it can trust you, that you won't let it down. Because that's another thing. If you keep saying you're going to do all these things and you never get to it, you never do it, you're not going to trust yourself. And again, this is a bad energy to move from. You learn to not trust yourself. This is going to be projected outwards. You might feel like you need to start relying on others because you can't do it. And this is going to affect your confidence. Next, be who you say you are. Now, this is a huge one for me. I've definitely in the past not allowed myself to fully stand in my truth and fully be who I say I am, who I want to be. And again, all of this is always going to come full circle back to confidence. I lacked confidence. Lacking confidence in what I say and what I believe in what my values are. It's easy to be swayed and just rely on others or believe what others believe or believe what the loudest person in the room believes, right? Even though maybe it goes against who you are. When you can't fully trust who you are and stay consistent in showing up that way, you are not going to be able to step into your full, confidence. Speak up when things go against, what you value. Stay strong and unshakable in what you believe in. And again, if you find this hard to do, even me just saying this, if this feels hard to do, if you just find it easier to trust in other people, trust in what they have to say versus what you have to say, it's time to get real with yourself. Honestly, I would honestly recommend doing an entire journal prompt, kind of like shadow work, more journal prompt, of really getting real with yourself. Who is it that you are? What are your values? What do you believe in? What do you stand for? What is true to you? Because maybe you've just never really explored this. Maybe you've never allowed yourself to explore it because, again, you just don't trust yourself. You've always relied on others. You don't fully believe in what you think you believe in. Educate yourself. Find out who you are. Get a real sense of self. This brings me back to an example I can remember multiple times in high school where, maybe something was happening that I didn't stand for, didn't believe in. Maybe someone was getting bullied or someone would say something that I didn't agree with, but I would just, stay silent or not speak up. I just wasn't embodying my truth. And then someone else would say it. Someone else would say what I was thinking. And I always envied people who could stand strong in their truth and, speak up. And, in some ways it would make me feel like a coward. It would make me feel like I also believe that, or that is what I stand for too, but I don't trust myself or my beliefs enough to say it, or I'm being swayed by, this person that is maybe just like louder or more convincing, even though I don't believe in what they're saying. Because I didn't fully trust myself and really what I stood for, I can honestly look back at so many times that I wish I would have, stepped up, spoken up, stood in my truth, and I didn't. Okay, so moving on to the last ingredient of this recipe is respect. Someone who embodies confidence does not tolerate disrespect. And also, I want to quickly touch on the fact that there's a difference between someone who doesn't tolerate disrespect because they respect themselves and someone who doesn't tolerate disrespect when their ego is shot. And examples of this, and this is not an attack, I've been there, but, speaking up against a toxic partner, yet staying in the relationship, or constantly fighting with a boss, but staying at that job. Now, I also acknowledge that not everyone can do this, right? A lot of people are in certain situations that they actually cannot get out of right now, and I'm not saying that these people don't respect themselves, right? If you are someone who really feels stuck in a certain toxic or maybe even dangerous situation that you're in, you are in survival mode, right? And you need to focus on how to get out of that situation. That's your main focus. I'm talking to the people who can leave, but they choose not to. And the thing is, if this is you, if you can leave these situations that are disrespecting you, but you are choosing not to, you're so close. You're aware, right? You're aware that you deserve more, that you don't deserve this disrespect, but you only speak up or show signs of respecting yourself when your ego gets bruised. But there's still a part of you that maybe believes that this is what you deserve, and you're still gaining something from this experience that is just disrespecting you. So to respect yourself, you need to raise your standards. And guess what the standard is? You are the standard. Surprise, life is literally a mirror. What you are is what you attract. When I look back at myself, a younger version of me that was in certain situations where I was being disrespected, I just see a young, wounded, vulnerable version of me who honestly didn't know her worth and did not respect herself. Because it's the thing, when you don't respect yourself, it feels normal or okay to accept disrespect. You've literally normalized disrespect in your life. You're with a partner who devalues you, who makes you feel worthless. You do that to yourself. So what's the difference? The difference is it hurts when it gets projected onto you, but it's normal when you do it to yourself. You can believe that you're worthless, you can speak negatively to yourself, you can disrespect yourself, but the second someone else does it to you, then it's a problem, then it hurts. When they're simply mirroring to you what you need to heal within yourself. It's not them, it's you. When I think about my ex, for example, and truly how toxic that was, I allowed it over and over again because I didn't respect myself. I didn't respect, love, trust myself, and I was expecting that from a partner. I wanted him to respect me and show up for me in certain ways, love me in certain ways, but I wasn't embodying that myself, and he was reflecting that to me. He was showing me how I felt about myself, and I wanted him to show me different. And so as toxic as that was, when that ended and I was able to truly integrate and learn all of the lessons and be able to realize this, right? Be able to be aware and come to the conclusion that he was just showing me what I needed to heal within myself. And I did just that. I created the new standard for myself, how I treat myself, how I respect myself, show up for myself, and what I expect from others. I would never attract, or if I did somehow, I would never accept disrespect now. Disrespect now would feel so foreign. Like if someone came into my life with that level of disrespect or thought they could disrespect me, it would literally like wee you, like fucking sirens. There would be danger signs left and right. Like the warnings would be so loud. And again, it would just feel so foreign. It would never be something that I would ever accept again. And this is the thing, kind of like what I said earlier, I don't even attract these people anymore. They do not have access to me. They cannot reach me. They can't. They could when I lacked confidence, lacked self-respect, was more in a vulnerable state, was insecure. They could reach me. I let them know that they could. You need to denormalize disrespect in your life, and it starts with you. So how do we do this? Here's the thing, personally, I feel as though when I really started, because my healing journey and getting into all of this and being able to embody confidence, it happened slowly and all at once. So I started by just finally holding myself again, like being there for myself again, loving myself again, and then trusting and respecting myself came next. And when I think back to the beginning, if you can't do it for yourself right now, do it for your younger self. Get into some inner child work. Picture younger you. It's sad, but sometimes, and I've been there, it's easier to show up for them than it is for you. But the thing is, that is you. You are them. So visualizing your younger self, remembering them, remember, what they like to do, what lit them up, what made them smile, how they laugh, their favorite games, their favorite shows. Like, just think of this younger you like a separate self, even though it isn't, even though that is you, and showing up for that separate self, showing up for that child, not allowing disrespect in your life because they don't deserve disrespect, kind of like protecting them. I found it easier to start that way. And when I was able to so easily acknowledge how much my younger self deserved respect, deserved love, it became easier for me to realize that I also deserve that. Another way that I did this was changing my phone background to a picture of me, and this is something that my friend Key taught me, and it's such a good reminder. Like right now I have it as my vision board, but sometimes I put it back to my younger self if I feel like I need that. And just, we're grabbing our phones so many times throughout the day, and just to see my little younger self and her just like her little smile and just think like, what do you want? Like, what do you want to do today? And just show up for her. Literally, I've had people be like, oh my God, is that your child? Like, is that your kid, when they see my phone? And part of me is like, yeah, this is my child, and I'm going to take care of her till the day I fucking die. But another practice is, we don't want to disrespect ourselves, right? Like when I think back to an older me or a younger me in a toxic relationship, I didn't want to disrespect I didn't want to be in that position. I wasn't like, oh, like fuck Sky. I wasn't aware and actively trying to do it, right? It was truly based on my beliefs of myself, what I thought I deserved, my self-worth, all that, right? So something I started to implement when I was still dealing with these thoughts, these lies, absolute lies, is when these lies would come into my brain about, what I thought I deserved, or, this negative talk, whatever it is, it's going to be individual to what you're going through. Like, your inner critic, what they say to you and about you and what you think you deserve. I would, in my head, when this would come up, and this is the thing, it's a practice, you need to become aware of it and not just like believe everything that you think. You cannot believe everything that you think. Most of it is lies. Most of it isn't yours. And especially the ones that have become repetitive, the fucking evil thoughts and lies that you repetitively hear. I would start to say in my head and sometimes out loud, says who? Says who? Like a negative thought about me would come in, or, you're this way, or you don't deserve this. Says who? Literally says who? And it's a weird way to just unidentify what that thought as being yours. Because if that thought comes in and you're having a bad day and all these negative thoughts come in and you're worthless and you're a failure and all these things, saying says who, it's such an empowering feeling, honestly, because I'm just like, sure, that thought is circling in my brain. Maybe it's circled in my brain for the past 22 years, so of course it's going to be there, or whatever. It was easy for me to see these as the truth or think of them as the truth when I just believe them. But you need to detach from these thoughts, from these beliefs. And it doesn't mean just the second you decide, oh, I'm going to start respecting myself and detaching myself from these beliefs, that you're going to, right? They still are there. They still come up. And says fucking who? Says who? Says who? Like, that has saved me from going into a downward spiral so many times. And I feel like it's just such an easy way to remember that you are not your thoughts. Next, and I'm pretty sure, because even just writing this down that I wanted to talk about this, I was getting like flashbacks of sitting here and talking about this. So I think I did a podcast episode on this, but basically, you need to start setting boundaries. Setting boundaries demands respect. When someone sets a boundary, it shows that they are putting themselves first, that they value themselves, that there's rules to having them in your life. They expect certain behaviors. And when you set a boundary, one of two things is going to happen. People are going to respect your boundary because they respect you, probably because they respect themselves, or they're going to disrespect your boundary. And when they disrespect your boundary, it usually means they don't respect themselves. So like the fact that you respect yourself enough to set boundaries and live your life a certain way and have certain, expectations of how people are going to show up and treat you in your life is foreign to them. Respecting yourself is foreign to them. So they are going to disrespect your boundary because they don't understand this level of setting, standards for yourself, or they have gotten so comfortable with disrespecting you that now that you're setting these boundaries, it's triggering them and they want to get back to this place where they could just step on you, take advantage of you, and they aren't willing to change. So again, setting boundaries, I feel like, is one of the harder things to do, especially if you've, lacked confidence and been a people pleaser and, relied on others, didn't fully respect yourself. This can feel like such a huge task, sometimes literally just because you don't want to let people down. But if you are living your life in a way or molding yourself to make sure other people are happy, you're not fully respecting yourself. You're not fully showing up for yourself. You're not putting yourself first. And guess what? This is your life. This is your life the same way that this is my life. I'm allowed to have boundaries. I'm allowed to set the standard of what you need to be, or the level of respect that you need to meet me at to be in my life. I'm allowed to do that. That is my right because this is my life. So if the thought of setting boundaries is scary, you have not been on your own team in a long time. And I get that so deeply. But this is the thing. The same way confidence is an energy. You can feel it. You can feel when someone's confident. You can feel when someone isn't. It's more of a spoken understanding, but when someone sets a boundary, personally, and maybe you agree with this, when someone sets a boundary, I respect them more. When someone sets a boundary, I know that they are putting themselves first. And that in itself radiates confidence. Finding the ability to do this, the strength to get back on your own team, you're going to notice the energy shift, and this is going to become easier and easier. You might already know this energy shift. You might already know when you are living in your energy and your truth and you're showing up for yourself, you're setting boundaries. Like, you will get used to how this feels, and you will get used to the feeling of not being on your own team. And this is going to start to become way more apparent, and you'll be able to bring yourself back. Embodying confidence can be your standard and should be. That should be how you feel most of the time. Again, it doesn't mean you're not going to go through hard times and doubts and lessons that you need to work through. That's still part of it. But coming back to radiating that energy, loving yourself, trusting yourself, respecting yourself, knowing where your lack of confidence came from, not falling victim to that, learning the lesson and coming back to that. Like, it's cyclical, but on average, you want to make being in this energy, embodying the energy of confidence, your standard. So, little recap of today's episode. I feel like this episode is so long. I haven't even looked at the footage yet. I haven't even looked at how long it is yet. But remember, you aren't this way. You were taught to be this way, and it's time to learn a new way. Confidence at its core is an energy. It's not what you wear or what you do, it's an energy. And to radiate on this frequency, you need to get familiar and embody this energy. To live in and sustain being your most authentic, real, confident self, you need to constantly come back to self-love, self-trust, and self-respect. If any of these are lacking, notice it, feel it, work through it, and get back on your own team. Notice when you're moving from a place of the opposite. Notice when you're not moving from self-love, not moving from self-trust, not moving from self-respect. Notice how you feel, and implement some of these practices to get back to yourself. Anyways, that is everything for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. Make sure to follow this podcast or follow my YouTube channel if you're watching the video version. I'll have all my links below, and I will see you in my next episode. Bye!